tonight comes from a young man, a driver from Rachjia, Xinjiang. He reached out to us to share not one, but 3 terrifying experiences that unfolded in his life. These encounters shattered his reality, forcing him to confront a truth he had spent his entire life denying. Before these events, he was a man of iron will and deep skepticism. He possessed a temperament that was stubborn, defiant, even arrogant, a trait, he admits, inherited from his father. His father, a man who spent his life wrestling with the violent tides of the ocean, was a sailor. He was a man who laughed in the face of superstition. A man who never believed in ghosts. But even the strongest foundations can crack. Years ago, shortly after our narrator was born, his mother had a terrifying encounter with the unseen, what we call ma'anachti, a ghostly oppression or haunting. When she told her husband, he scoffed, ridiculing the very idea. But fate has a cruel way of proving skeptics wrong. Shortly after, the father himself was confronted by something he could not explain. An experience so profound it silenced his laughter and demanded his belief. Growing up, our narrator heard these stories from his parents, but they fell on deaf ears. He treated them as campfire fables, nothing more. To him, the modern world was a place of logic and science. Ghosts were remnants of the past, relegated to folklore. He lived his life without fear, driving late into the night, traversing lonely roads and desolate highways. He had never seen a specter, never felt a cold touch, and so his skepticism only hardened into certainty. That certainty remained unshaken until he began his career as a contract driver handling 16-seater vans. His job took him across the length and breadth of the country. He became a nomad of the asphalt, ferrying strangers from one destination to the next. Still, the roads remained silent and unremarkable. That was until a trip that would change his soul forever. He had been hired to transport a large group to Benduong for a banquet. The destination was deep within a sprawling rubber plantation, a labyrinth of trees standing like silent sentinels in the dark. The journey went smoothly. The guests reached their destination, and the night fell with a heavy, oppressive silence. Our driver was tasked with waiting overnight and returning the following morning. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in bruises of purple and black, the host of the party approached him. "Young man," the host said, his voice laced with concern, "tonight, come inside and sleep in the house. It's safer." Our driver glanced at the house. It was small, and the number of guests staying over was large. It looked cramped and stifling. Not wanting to be a burden, he declined. "Thank you, sir, but it's quite all right. I'm used to sleeping in the van. I'll be fine out here." But the host wouldn't let it go. His eyes were wide, urgent. "No, you don't understand. Listen to me. Go inside. Do not sleep in the car. It's not just the mosquitoes, they are vicious. Here it's something else. There are things here. It's haunted, heavily haunted. Please, just come inside." The driver laughed internally. Haunted. The word felt like a joke. He didn't believe in the supernatural, and he certainly didn't fear it. If anything, he felt a surge of defiant arrogance. He wanted to test this superstition. He looked at the host, his voice tinged with a mocking edge. "Haunted sir, I don't fear ghosts. I don't believe in them. And even if I did, if one were to show its face to me, I'd kick it until it died." The host stared at him for a long moment, a look of pity and frustration washing over his face. He said nothing more and retreated into the house. Left alone, the driver walked back to his 16-seater van. He readied his blanket and pillow on the front bench. He cracked the windows just an inch, wanting to invite the night breeze while keeping the interior secluded. He settled in, phone in hand, intending to scroll away the hours. But sleep was an elusive ghost. An hour passed, then more. The air inside the van, despite the cracked window, grew stifling, unbearably hot. It felt as though the humidity of the rubber forest had seeped into the cabin, heavy and suffocating. He decided he needed air. He would sit up, start the engine, and wind the windows down further. He dropped his phone and sat up, his movements fluid and purposeful. And then he froze. Right there, pressed against the windshield, was a face, not a human face, but a grotesque, hellish mask of agony and malice. It was detached from a body, floating in the darkness of the rubber forest, staring directly at him. The hair was a matted, tangled mess of filth. The eyes were twin pools of burning, blood-red light. The mouth was stretched wide, pulled into a terrifying grin that exposed row after row of jagged canine fangs. That the creature didn't move. It just stared. And then a sound emanated from it, a wet, rasping sound. It beckoned him. Come out! Come out. Here. Come out! His heart hammered against his ribs like a trapped bird. Terror, cold and absolute, washed over him. This was the first time in his life he had encountered the impossible. His mind raced, screaming for flight, but his body was He was a man who lived by logic, and logic had just been dismantled. Desperate to survive, he forced himself to lie back down. He squeezed his eyes shut, his mind chanting a mantra of denial. I don't see it. It isn't there. It isn't! There, he began to pray, his lips moving silently. Namamadi PhD. He repeated the words like a lifeline, over and over, his hands trembling against his chest. Minutes felt like hours. Slowly, agonizingly, he cracked one eye open. Nothing. He opened both, his heart pounding in his throat. The face was gone. Relief, shallow and fleeting, washed over him. It was just a hallucination, he thought. My prayers drove it away. The moment he thought those words, the van began to tremble. It wasn't a vibration, it was a violent shaking. This was a 16-seater van, a heavy, solid piece of machinery, yet it rocked back and forth with the force of an earthquake. The sound returned the laugh, a high-pitched, cackling laughter that ripped through the quiet night air. Come out, you said you'd kick me. Come out here. The voice was no longer beckoning. It was taunting, screaming with a rage that shook the very foundations of the vehicle. The van pitched violently, tossing him from one side to the other. He was trapped in a metal cage with a demon. Panic, raw and unfiltered, took hold. His fingers fumbled, searching for his phone. He managed to unlock it, his hands shaking so violently, he nearly dropped it. He scrambled to YouTube, searching frantically for a recording of the Great Compassion Mantra. He found it. He hit play, cranking the volume to the maximum, filling the suffocating air with the holy chants. Gradually, the shaking ceased. The laughter faded into the rustling of the rubber leaves. He lay there, curled in terror, unable to move until the first light of dawn began to bleed into the sky. The next morning, he found the host and recounted everything. The man's face went pale. I told you! I warned you to come inside. She is malicious. She doesn't just haunt, she destroys. The host explained the tragedy that birthed this entity. The spirit was a young woman, only 21 or 22 years old, who worked as a rubber tapper. She was a gentle soul until a group of men fellow workers and violated her in a horrific act of collective brutality. Broken and ashamed, she had taken her own life in the very forest where he had slept. Since her death, she had become a vengeful spirit tethered to the trees, harboring an eternal, burning hatred for men. I warned you, the host whispered. But you didn't listen. When he returned home, he told his mother everything. She didn't scoff. She didn't laugh. She simply nodded, a look of profound sorrow on her face. See, you didn't believe me. You didn't believe your father. Now you know. Go light incense for our ancestors. Thank them for protecting you. That thing. It is not something to be trifled with. And so, he did. He lit the incense, his hand steadying as the smoke curled toward the ceiling. He had looked into the darkness, and for the first time in his life, he knew that the shadows had eyes, and the silence was never truly empty. My friends, that was but the beginning of his journey into the truth of the unseen. It is a reminder that the world we see is only a fraction of what exists. Sometimes, the veil is thin, and what lies beyond is not always kind. Thank you for joining me tonight. Remember, keep your lights on and keep your faith close. We will meet again in the darkness.